The Senate Judiciary had a meeting last week about prison and where we were at with the COVID. And you had Kamala Harris, Dianne Feinstein, you had Blumenthal, and the head of the BOP there, who could not communicate or articulate what they give an inmate when they first check in. We give them some soap. Well, the soap is like this big. Toothpaste is this big, and a comb. And that's supposed to help stop COVID and keep this person clean until they're able to go to commissary, which they've locked down. So he couldn't even articulate it. It was a joke. And then when they were pressed for numbers about how they were screening, what they had set up, it's just, again, it's that corporate paragraph communication person just shoving it out there. And it's all lies.
Thanks for stopping by the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. I'm the host of the show, Sean Dustin. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. It's good to have you with us today. There are a couple of ways that you can help support the show. One of which is if you know somebody out there who would benefit from listening to the show or an episode in this show, send them over. I'd be happy to have them as listeners. Also, you can subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. And if I'm currently not available on the platform you listen to, send me an email and I will try to get added to it. I have merchandise available now, hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and other items. This is another way you can help support the show, and the show will get a portion of the proceeds. You can find direct links to iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, merchandise, and anywhere else we are online at the bottom of the show notes. There are currently opportunities right now to win show merchandise over in my Facebook group. There's a challenge going on over there right now, and to get there, just go to the Linktree link and find my YouTube group tab in the Linktree and follow it over there, join the group, and there'll be instructions pinned to the top of the timeline there. Another thing I have going on right now, too, is all of my interviews going forward will be live streams on Facebook Live on my timeline there, as well as the podcast platforms and YouTube as well. So there'll be 3 places you can catch this. You can catch it live, and you can ask questions, if you and interact with my guests and myself live, or you can wait for the podcast, or you can wait for the YouTube production of it. That's about it. That's all I have for now. So without further ado, let's get to the show. This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and I'm your host, Sean Dustin. Today we are talking to Holli Coulman, and Holli is a paralegal, and she's currently working for the Dallas Public Defender's Office, and she was also a inmate. I'll let you tell that part.
Okay, that's fine. Hi, that's fine. I'll introduce myself. My name is Holli Coulman. I am a former federal inmate. I was sentenced to 21 months for 1 count of wire fraud. I was an executive assistant at a large tech company. I supported very high-level senior vice presidents that reported into the CEO of the company. And actually, that company was under audits and under internal review, and not just in the United States, but in Europe and South America. And I didn't know this, but what we did and what my crime is related to is at that level, you wine and dine your customers. You take internal and external people and you fly them very all high level senior vice. And when I say that reported into wine and dine, I mean to a very large extent. So everything filtered on my credit cards And then, of course, expense approvals went just to my bosses for them to approve, and then on to finance too. And so also with this, at the time, this tech company was going through a reorganization, and I knew that they were going to be offering packages to several people. I took a package. I left the company. I went to work for another tech company. And a year later, on my birthday, I had 13 FBI agents at my front door.
Wow.
They didn't have an arrest warrant, but they had a search warrant. And what they were looking for were goods or services that were purchased on those corporate cards that would be related to me. They didn't find anything. They left. They did take our phones and our laptop to go through, and those were returned. But when you go through this, the trauma of having 13 FBI agents at your front door, I've never even more than a traffic ticket in my life. You're traumatized, and you have to hurry up and figure out what you're going to do because the FBI has been there and something's coming. So I had to find an attorney, and I actually went to work for my attorney once I got out, and I'll explain that. But you have to hurry up and find an attorney. I then was notified by the prosecutor's office that I was being investigated. Their total amount that they were looking at, saying that I personally spent, was $2.4 million.
What?
And that was, I know, but what that was, and so what people to know, because this is what prosecutors do, that was my entire spend over 12 years at Hewlett-Packard, whether it was a pencil or a meeting or anything. So they just lumped it all together and said $2.4 million. And we're like, well, one, I was blown away because I'm like, that's insane. Finally, we got to discovery, and the discovery was a spreadsheet.
Really?
No receipts, no nothing, a spreadsheet. And in there is said who attended these meetings, what it was for, and you'll see that my boss had her husband, her kids. We had the head of FedEx. We had this. We did everything. So I had been smart and kept some evidence, meaning I had a lot of things that I had put in for expense reports still saved. And I put that together in a 5-inch binder, and we met with the FBI and the prosecutor, shoved it across at them. They said, no, we don't need to look at this. Oh, and by the way, they pulled me in on the pretense that they were investigating my boss. And that's not true. Once I got there, it was very apparent they wanted to talk to me, and it was about me. They shoved the 5-inch binder back and said, we're going to take a break. When we came back, it went from 2.4 all of a sudden down to under $1 million. So they had a narrative of already what they were seeking. When you're in the feds, if you take it to trial, if there's one thing that they could possibly nail you on that is little gray, I mean, you're guilty. So that's why these prosecutors, they push these plea deals right at you. They don't have to do any work, because if I was going to take it to trial, my attorney told me I need another $100,000, and more likely you're going to get more time. And it's to plead, and they're going to come after you for these other incidences in here that could be construed personal. So you have to, again, move fast, and you're traumatized. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to react. You have to accept responsibility quickly, because you do get a downward departure if you accept responsibility. Mm-hmm. So I had to think about it and the plea deal, and so I took the plea deal. So I am very well versed now with how the system works inside, how it's rigged, how even if you have a public federal defender, how difficult it is. That's why you have the prosecutors have a 98.2% conviction rate, because people take plea deals.
Yeah.
And you have to eat what's in the narrative. Excuse me. So I took the plea, was sent to Victorville, California, which is a women's camp. Mm-hmm. It is located on a complex which has a men's penitentiary, and 2 men's medium facilities. To prepare myself, I hired a prison consultant, and I know them all in the industry, and I paid a lot of money to help prepare me, and it was a man, and he did not prepare me well. So it was an eye-opening experience, again, when you have a white-collar person show up at camp, and right away you just see the ineptitude of the Bureau of Prisons, from the officers on down, and just how where they're telling the public one thing about here's what we really do with these inmates, here's how we really rehabilitate them, here's how we give them the skills to go out, here's the medical we provide them, and it's all a joke. It is zero. So while in, you have to develop a release plan, and I have to think about what I'm going to do afterwards. And there's so many restrictions that are going to come afterwards. Again, it makes it's a lifelong sentence when you're a felon in the federal system. That's why we say it's lifelong, because there's other obstacles and barriers that you're going to have. So I see these women low level. There's no reason to have people like myself or these other women at a camp be incarcerated. None. There should be diversion programs, and we should be able to take the money that the BOP gets and have a punitive aspect to it, but develop these programs for drug rehabilitation. They say they have that inside. They have which, some people will say it was dual kind of to get out earlier as well.
Yeah, we kind of lost that one. So for those that didn't hear that, it's a program called RDAP in the federal system. And usually you can't even qualify for RDAP until you have, because I know there's a woman that I'm talking with now, and she said that they gave her 400 months on a conspiracy charge when she didn't even they got rounded up a whole bunch of people, and then everybody started telling on each other to reduce sentences. And she ended up, when the music stopped, she didn't have a seat. So she's the one that got the shit into the stick.
Let's talk about conspiracy, because going back to right now, you're seeing a lot. What I say is prosecutors are going after the low level, low hanging fruit.
Yep.
So, for example, you could have somebody that is running an ambulance company. It's a private company, but they contract. And you've got the person in the billing department. And everybody gets popped, or the owner gets popped for doing something wrong with the billing or what they're charging. And they're going to take everybody. And it's conspiracy. And actually, conspiracy is worse than if you did the crime. You get.
Yeah, because you can't prove it.
Then it's hearsay, but conspiracy, you have to look at it that way. If you have a conspiracy charge, it's almost worse than if you actually did the crime, because the narrative, and it's just going to give you way more time. It's like an enhancement. So I learned that so much with the women that I was in, that they've gotten, conspiracy to commit, no evidence. It wasn't them, but they were part of it, or somebody said, okay, it's them, and to lower their sentence. It is harsh. And that's why I work with women that, it's trying to mitigate the conspiracy charge is huge. It's almost, it's almost impossible, but when you see these conspiracy charges and they're long lengths of sentence, it's not these short ones. They may be still qualified for a camp, but they're long, and this is an archaic sentencing guideline chart that needs to be revised. We talk about criminal justice reform all the time. Right now, the way it works is it takes your congressperson to go in and help try and enact a law to make this change. So the judges do have a structure, and we're able to sentence somebody appropriately. The conspiracy charges, like I said, are archaic. Not just regular types of sentences. These are really bad. So, it went back to really the mob days of what they were, trying to catch a lot of the mobsters. So that tells you how far conspiracy goes.
Yeah, and that's really what it was designed to, because when they couldn't catch these guys, legitimately, they had something in their bed. They had an ace up their sleeve to be able to, okay, what did they get Al Capone on? They got him on, fraud, right? Mail fraud. That's what he ended up going to prison for, because he had his ship so tight that they couldn't get in. They couldn't get him on anything. So yeah, 33 years they gave her, and at the very best, she was a high level addict. She wasn't a high level drug runner, or and she had a criminal history too. But she sold meth, but I sold meth too. And when I got in trouble, I sold to an undercover 5 times, an ounce apiece. I got on a first felony, which they should have taken me to jail after the first one, not let it go 5 more times so they could stack the charges on me so I couldn't get out. I couldn't afford bail. It's a slimy system, man. And I
call it the playbook, man. The prosecutor, these DAs and prosecutors have a playbook. I work in the public defender's office. We see it, daily, with our clients. They have a playbook. They know they gotcha.
Yeah.
They know they can enhance back. Let me see. What can we do? What can I do? And is that truth? Is that really how the law should be interpreted? No. And we got to recognize that there are, even with criminal history, there's mental health issues. Mm-hmm. There's drug, alcohol problems, abuse, that really, that's the root of the problem. That's the root. Not necessarily, the crime comes after that.
It's trauma.
It's trauma. It is.
It's trauma. Trauma is the root of all addiction, all issues is trauma. And her trauma, in her case, it was, her mom had sold her to, basically sold her to a drug dealer when she was 14 for drugs.
Yeah.
Kind of. In sort of a roundabout sort of way. And then she ended up being with this guy and had no idea, she's no saint. Let's get that straight right now. She has a lengthy criminal history, but in no shape, way, shape or form should she have gotten 33 years, because now when she hits 10 years, now she's eligible to go to a camp and she's eligible for RDAP and all these other things, but she's got to put in 20 years first.
Yeah, that's way down.
And here's something else. Well, I'm just going to point this out just because this is the type of thing that we're dealing with in this country, is the guy that one of her co-conspirators got the most amount of time, but then he also was able to get his sentence reduced because one of the women that testified against him, and said that that he sold her drugs, he proved that he was in prison at the time that she was saying, so it couldn't have happened. And this is the same woman who ratted out her. But in order for her to be able to, if she has to have money to have a lawyer, because if that comes out, then you got a faulty witness here. You know what I mean? Who's already been caught lying here. So, there's got to be, I don't know what to do for her. Is there, other than exposing her, her crimes or her situation through a podcast. And I have a buddy who did it. And so, we're trying to create a chain of exposure here, and we'll see. Sure. I'm going to drop a link in the comments here for anybody that's watching or listening to check out, Melissa Veach's, episode with Talk from the Cell Block, from my buddy Joe Martinez. But yeah, go ahead, man. It's crazy.
We need to take a look at her case and see, did she have an effective counsel? Did she have anybody? It's no. Okay. There's just things like this. So, there's a way to take a look at that. But I'll go back. So when I was in, I saw that most women, again, low level, and it costs $37,000 to $44,000 to have somebody like, us, when there should be other ways to do this. And part of that is something called criminal justice reform, and it's to create maybe some diversion programs and start getting traction and starting getting with the business leaders. But inside, I went, okay, there's got to be something to prepare these women because they have no idea. A lot of them, deer in the headlight. You don't know. You don't know what it's going to be like. You don't know what it's going to be like at the halfway house. You don't know what supervised release is going to be like. You don't know what the rules and regulations are. Drug cases are one, white collar is different. So it was enough for me that when I got out, I got my paralegal and I sat for the bar, the paralegal bar exam. And I went to work for my criminal defense attorney. He actually believed in me so much that I went to work for him first in his law firm. And then was able to help educate him, because we went back and forth going, you had no idea what I was going to be facing. You had no idea what happened to me inside. I went to the SHU. I was sent to this special housing unit for 60 days for writing a blog about women's safety in prison, what it was like there at the camp. Mm-hmm. I had worked for the warden, and he was stabbed. And then the reaction to that and how inept the BOP really is, I put that out there and they didn't like it too well. So they were going to give me a very severe infraction, which I was able to meet with a discipline hearing officer before they were going to take me away. The SHU for women in Victorville is to take them to San Bernardino County Jail. And he expunged my shot, but that's not what the officers did. They said, oh, we don't know anything about that. Let's go. Mm-hmm. So threw me in solitary for 60 days, then came back and picked me up and brought me back. And then the shot was never on my room. And in fact, when I requested copies of it, said, we can't provide it to you. The BOP is dirty. We're going to get into all the different details about the fraud that they commit, the things that they force the inmates to commit fraud on their behalf. Unicorn, we're going to talk about that. But when I got out, I decided that, there's not many women prison consultants. And I want to preface this. There's a lot of them out there that charge you thousands of dollars. I do not do that. If I have anything that I have to file or work really on, then we make it appropriate, but it's not thousands of dollars. And I wanted to make that clear because somebody had pinged me on that on Facebook about compassionate release and COVID and the CARES Act right now. But to get back is I decided that there needs to be something for women. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And along the way, more educated and more women are willing to speak that are getting out, that their voices are being heard. So there's a tipping point that's happened where people like you will expose and talk about the bad. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Talk about also moving forward, getting help, and trying to rebuild your life. And I wanted to be able to help that. So I work with a lot of women, both that's been incarcerated, aren't, but they're attorneys or can help people or working in the mental health space. So that was a big deal for me. And I wrote a book about my experience. It will come out in October. It's called True Injustice, and it's going to talk about everything I saw leading up to my case, everything with the prosecutor, everything with the FBI, my incarceration halfway house. What a joke that was. It didn't help anybody where I was at, and I sat there for 3.5 months, even though I qualified to go to home confinement. And then supervised release, and how it had 2 really punitive probation officers that made it almost impossible for me to work. And then, of course, repayment of restitution.
Yeah, which okay. So here's a crazy one. You owe almost $1 million, right? In restitution, and part of the problem with that is how are you going to pay that? When you come out and you have nothing. All right. You're lucky, and congratulations for taking the initiative to do what most people won't do, which is go and dive into the system, which screwed you, and try to make a difference by getting on the inside and learning about what it is that the problem is, and you found a way to be able to put yourself in, cause the law is not meant for us to understand by design. It's meant for us to like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm screwed. Life is, it's over. And, there are some people that actually, guys that I when I was in, they took the initiative and they learned the law. They spent hours in the law library and they dissected their cases, and some of them got out. They got their time reduced, or they got the clemency, or maybe not clemency, but early, whatever they did to be able to learn how to get in and out of that system. Because it's a bear trap, man. It's like it's not even a bear trap. It's one of those traps where there's a pit and it's a pitfall.
Yes, like I said, there's no rehabilitative. Every program that they tell the public that here, for example, there was a finance, and it was teaching women how to write a check, how to fill out a check.
Is that one of those ACE programs, or are those a little different?
Those are a little tad different. Yeah. But these programs don't really, or they had an Excel, and you don't touch a computer when you're inside. Everybody thinks that you can, you're emailing. Well, that's through a very archaic system as well. But these classes you got a piece of paper. It shows you what a cell for Excel means. So it's not really setting anybody up. Plus, I think I still have the films on I have the pamphlet on this. It was how to find a job when you get out, research the yellow pages. I'm not kidding. It's that old. So
what are those?
You're not kidding me. So that coupled with the lack of medical, there is no medical. I mean, if you have to take insulin, that's about the only medical I ever saw is the women getting their insulin. And trust me, there were times that many of them didn't. And there were horrible, horrible things that happened. I wanted to expose the fraud because, for example, I worked for the CMS, which was like a construction material group within the complex. And part of it was updating their fire alarm systems. And they said, and I actually had to write that we had fire drills at the camp, that the women knew where to go, what to do. We never had a fire drill. Never. So Victorville, everything from 2015 to 16 is a lie. So, but they're audited, they're autonomous, and that's the other part that people need to understand. The Bureau of Prisons has no independent oversight. So when they do an audit internally, it's the BOP auditing the BOP. So unless you have a really good person in that position that's overseeing that audit, basically it just goes on. That's why they are able to not respond. They have what they call deliberative permission to not have to respond, and that everything's hunky-dory. So every audit that from fire drills to food to medical, we don't see accurate information because they lie. Mm-hmm. And just like recently, the Judiciary Committee called the BOP in and wanted to talk to them about COVID. How many inmates have it? What institutions? What's going on? Because a lot of civil lawsuits were popping up with hundreds of inmates at Elkton, Pekin. And they were to explain how they were handling COVID inside. You can't social distance. They were people have been locked in 23 hours. You get 1 hour. And you can shower Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And they're eating bologna sandwiches almost every single day. And there's no hand sanitizer, there's no masks, there's nothing. So the BOP owed that response, and they couldn't articulate it. They said, we've set up special areas, the visitation room, and you're putting people in there, locking them all in, still 23 hours, quarantining them for 14 days and taking their temperature. No testing. At the majority of the facilities that I have talked to people that are there. They did not. And then this is the funny one that I keep going back to, the director of one of the directors was up and was asked, what do you give people who are being transported in intake? What do you give them? What do you give them to help? They said they give them, and he could not articulate what they get. This is a director of the Bureau of Prisons there to speak. And then finally he gathered himself. He goes, well, we give them soap. We give them some toothpaste. We give them a comb. The soap's this big, people. And how long is that supposed to stop the spread of COVID? So, and everything else you have to purchase. on commissary, if it's on commissary. From what I understand now, masks are starting to pop up on commissary. So that means at the expense of the inmate's family or friends, or their own what they make, which is nothing, and we'll get into Unifor. And 16 cents an hour doesn't really go far when you shampoo's $4. So these are the things that need to be exposed. It's just their program statements, they don't match to what they actually do. You've got officers that aren't qualified, but because prisons are in the middle of nowhere, they take what they can get. And you're not dealing with the brightest bulb to begin with.
Well, also not to mention that some of these, so for people that are listening, a lot of the times these federal prisons are they're FCIs or federal prison complexes. Okay. And so usually you will have a camp in a big complex, and that camp services everything. All right. So from maintenance to, sometimes even the kitchen, cooking, everything, keeping the yard, clipped and all that stuff.
Gas lights, electric.
Yep.
Everything. The women at my camp, and that's what I wanted to probably explain, is because of the men's custody levels, medium facility, they cannot work out. They can't work outside. And of course the pen is, that's never going to happen. So the women go around doing everything from recycling. Really, it's not recycling. It's just trash pickup. And they have to weed through all the trash and separate it because they do make money, meaning the BOP makes money. That facility makes money off of what they can recycle. It's a really horrible job. You've got women that are running backhoes. You've got women that are driving drivers, meaning they take everything from staff because it's a complex, and they'll drive the staff back and forth to the different, the medium, the pen, everything from yard work outside to electrical, like changing the big mast light when you stay on the yard, those big mast lights.
Yeah.
Women are doing this, and those are heavy things, and it's hotter than hell out there. It's cheap labor. It's how the complex runs. When they're asked for their budget, they already know what they pretty much need and what they put in for, and they know that their labor is, it's not officers. They say it's officers paying. They're paying these officers exorbitant amount of money to manage a low level offender like me, so I can go out there and change the mast light. It's got to change that whole part, and the solution is to go way back and not to sentence these people to begin with, or put them in a program and have that funds go to that program, not to the prison. And these prisons are growing at the cyclic rate, people. We're not talking about lowering the population. The population is still increasing. Yeah. We're going to see a small dip because everything's frozen right now and people aren't being sentenced. So, of course, the BOP will spend it and so will the DOJ, saying, oh, look, inmate is down, warehousing. But these women also work in these complexes. They typically have something called Unifor. And what that is there are corporations out in the United States that will contract for prison labor. And women are paid a higher rate, which is usually $1.10. Woo! Compared to 16 cents a day. Yeah. But these are contracts that, for example, my former company, Hewlett Packard, had contracted through Unifor to refurbish printers. Under Armour was having people sew. This is sweatshop mentality. This is horrific. The Unifor system made $500 million last year. $500 million off these contracts on top. $500 million. And you're paying a person $1.10 to do this. And that means these companies, therefore, support slave labor. So that is a very big eye-opening thing that people should really pay attention to when they're going to purchase something. You're purchasing things that were possibly done by an inmate. And that's not right.
No,
especially when women are getting, yeah.
It's not. Yeah, it's not right. And so one thing that Melissa was telling me, she works in Unicor, and she says that lately they've been working 12 hours a day, 12-hour shifts with hardly any breaks. Hot as hell in there. There's no air conditioning, no anything. She works on a heat press, and she's pressing flags or eagles on Air Force shorts.
Okay.
And
we also we had women doing paint and blasting work on Humvees for the military.
Jesus. So not only so they're making $500 million just in the Unicor, getting $44,000 per inmate per day per year, right?
Per year.
And the only professional kind of help that they have there is you have the people that work, like the officers that are probably, I don't even know if they're qualified electricians, because I know that there's one, like they have one officer for each thing, right? And so you may have in a, like how many what would you say a staff is for the for everybody, like maybe 150 staff members per institution, 200, 250 maybe?
Well, about 250 at Victorville, because there's over 5,100 on the whole complex. And yeah, it's
so essentially, if they just use Unicor, they could fund the whole thing without taxpayer money, right?
Correct.
You know, and that would make a lot more sense than charging us $44,000 per person to warehouse human beings, basically what you're doing, with no help whatsoever, no rehabilitation, no nothing. You might get your GED. You might be able to, you know, if you can actually get to one of the places that has the ACE deals, because not every single one of them has something that's going to offer you, like barbershop or cosmetology, something that you can take out with when you go. It's horrible, man. It's horrible. I didn't get any help there, but I was only there for like 18 months. I wasn't there for a very long time. But I mean, when I was fighting my case you know, and that's another thing in itself, man. At a contract facility, you know, there's tons of these contract facilities all over the place. When I was, going from my state bid and I paroled out to the feds, I had a 3-month diesel therapy ride from Las Vegas, went to Florence, Arizona. If you know about Florence, that's a city in itself. It has 9 prisons. The whole city is nothing but a prison town, and everybody that lives in that city works at the prison. I went to Victorville, stayed in Victorville for 2 weeks, got stuck, and they don't let you out at all. Yeah. You don't get to go out when you're in transit, you know, cause you're who knows? It's just, I mean, a lot of problems. We know that there's a lot of problems. So, like, what are some of the solutions that we can get to, I mean, aside from what I'm doing and what you're doing, like at a federal level, how can we make a change aside from burning down the whole system and starting from scratch, which is going to take overthrowing the government to do that.
Right. So there's 2 ways to look at it. For solution-based is when I was talking about these programs, it's to get the public to understand, you know, most of my friends would have always said, hey, you do the crime, you do the time. You have to understand what it's all about when it goes down. So it's education of really what I was explaining, like with my case.
Yeah.
It's to create these programs, get the money funded, not carve off even under the DOJ, but put more programs in, actual valued programs. So don't send them to the camp or don't send them to prison. Put them in almost like a halfway house atmosphere for drug rehabilitation, alcohol rehabilitation, mental health, if you've been through, again, sexual abuse, any type of trauma. We do it in Dallas County. We have diversion programs, and they're very successful, and there's only 6 across the United States. So if we can apply something like that into the federal system where prosecutors have the ability to recognize somebody's criminal history as well as what their life really is, read that damn PSR, and put somebody in a program, get them back out, get them the help and skills they need. Programs take money. It's always about the almighty dollar. It's to shift the mindset. And with the DOJ side of this is the only way to make change is, again, to go to your congressperson to enact a law to make the change. And we have to start with sentencing guidelines. We have to start with also prosecutorial overreach and their type of immunity. They have immunity. The prosecutors, they're pretty much untouchable. We've got to change that where they're held accountable. And if they do something wrong, that they're either fired or themselves can, be brought up on charges. Those are the two areas that we have. Again, it's all about education to, like, my neighbors, to explain to them. They're like, oh, okay. That makes sense. Instead of pumping when the BOP asks, I need, $1.2 billion this year to run all the facilities. Yeah. Well, that's payroll and keeping the lights on and keeping somebody in warehouse for $44,000, up to $44,000 a year. Those are the only two ways that I see. And that's with criminal justice reform, because people are always asking, well, give me a solution. Don't complain about it. You can tell me everything that happened to you. And I tell them, and they're like, okay, but how then do we do this? So we do this by a lot of nonprofits that are starting, are trying to support this and get traction, again, with religious leaders in the community, other mental health agencies, any drug rehabilitative programs, trying to put it together and maybe a test run to show how successful it would be. Then it would prove to the public. So more funding could be brought out. So those are the things that, with the women that I speak with, they're trying to get the word out and trying to do this. But again, a lot of people only think of themselves and they think of inmates, kind of last, or, hey, you're a felon. We've got to change the mindset about that. Everybody deserves a second chance, sometimes third chance, fourth chance. A human being is a human being. We can't throw them away.
Well, you just got to look at a child and how long it takes them and how many times they have to fall down and get up before they can learn how to walk. We are the same way, when it comes to addiction. I mean, I struggled with it. I relapsed and fell down a bunch of times. I mean, actually I have maybe 15 to 18 years of falling down and getting back up before I realized that, oh, wow, maybe I should just start walking, and something clicks, you never know when it's going to be. That's the problem with addiction, but the way that we are dealing with it, and in a shame, in a punishment, we should be coming at it from a compassionate sense and giving these people connection, not separation from society.
Yeah, we do. We need to do that. And the other piece, I mean, there's so many pieces. I keep saying this, and another piece, but everybody runs into problems such as trying to find a job. So we need to find, how can we help people releasing find a job to help satisfy the requirements for supervised release? How can we find housing? Because apartment complexes do not rent to felons. Mm-hmm. You fill out the application, pay the fee, and they're going to deny you. They're going to hit your background. So most people have to find somebody that is independent, that won't run one and is willing to rent to you. That's not a fix. So I had talked with Tynese Hall. She had received clemency from President Trump this year. And that's what her biggest thing was. She said, you know what? I have nothing. I had nothing. Even though she got clemency, this big name. Yeah. And she's working 2 jobs right now. And it's taken so many things for her because she didn't have the money for first last months, and she just got out of prison. So that's a big fix too. Yeah,
that's where I'm focused on. Like you're focused sort of on getting people, and you're going to, and the reform aspect of it. My aspect of it is in reentry and giving people the tools that they need when they come out to succeed. All right. Because what a lot of times, when you're in these environments, and your case is completely different. You weren't a criminal. I was, so I deserved what I got. I was lucky. I only got like 18 months, but, the problem is that I had learned all of these behaviors to be able to maneuver in that lifestyle. All right. And then when you go to prison, you still have those behaviors don't go away because you're in a small criminal environment. So they help you to be able to navigate while you're in prison. Right. And so when I got out, I mean, it was such a shock because there was a clash between the way that my attitude and my behaviors still were and society. They didn't mix, right? So you got to figure out how to change the behaviors to be able to operate in regular society. You want to be taken seriously, then don't talk ghetto, or, don't talk the way that, you would normally talk when you're in prison to other people. Don't, you're going to deal with people. I got into construction. So you're going to deal with individuals that don't have respect for you. And you can't, and I struggled with this because I'm like, I'm a big dude, like a decent sized linebacker. And I have a young kid talking down to me as my, supervisor.
As your boss, right?
And that's difficult. So these are the things you have to teach these people that are coming out to be able to integrate into society, be successful, set them up to succeed and not to fail. The system is designed to set you up to fail from the gate once you get out. They put all these demands on you. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to be here, have to be there. Go piss test here. Do this, do that, blah, 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 blah. And if you don't have a support system when you're outside, you are going to fail. And if you don't fail, you're going to say, you know what? This is too hard. Screw it. I might as well go back.
And that's what the revolving door. But see, the other part of this is they want you back.
I know.
They don't have a problem with this. They want you back. They're fine. They're like, come on back.
Come on. We got a bed for you.
That's exactly what one of the officers did. Said, yep.
I'll see you in about a year.
Business is good today. He said, business is good today. So they're expecting that. So that tells me right there, they know as well the rehabilitative stuff's in there. So to do that, it's going to take a lot of us collectively getting together. It takes a while, but we all have to figure out our local or state, whatever we can do. And so a lot of the women that I've been talking with, all in different cities are trying to pull those resources together. So we have some form of something that they can call or contact. Again, it's really hard.
Yeah, it is because, you have so many responsibilities when you get out. The last thing that you're thinking about is, how can I help? How can I help? It's just like, how can I survive? Now that I'm in this, I'm out. It's not easy. I was trying to figure out how I could go about doing this. And to me, it just seems like either I need to partner up with a nonprofit or I need to start my own nonprofit, and design a program and design a mentorship program, for that, and it just takes time. This is the start. It takes time. It takes, filling out the form. If you possibly get a grant, then you have to write it for a grant. There are funds out there, but that all takes a while. And, people don't have a while. Yeah.
So I commend you because you're starting to talk about the things that people need to know.
Yeah.
And the more you network, the more people pay attention and the more, hey, maybe I can help, or, hey, I have somebody that can do this. And that's what I've noticed that's made a big difference.
Yeah, that's what somebody told me too. One of my family members are like, you don't always have to do everything yourself.
It's hard to delegate sometimes because you're like, oh, maybe somebody else can help me.
Yeah. Well, it's like you have an idea in your head and you just like, I can't articulate to you what I want, but I know what I want here. Mm-hmm. And it's just, sometimes it's easier just to like, no, I'll do it. And then the mountain just becomes so overwhelming that you're like, oh, well, Maybe I'll do it later.
Yeah.
And then later never comes.
It doesn't. No, I know. So, one other part is you had brought up my restitution, and for people to know that I was ordered to pay $3,000 a month when I was turned over to supervised release. One, I had to find a job with all those obstacles and being a felon, and two, I didn't make $3,000 a month. And my probation officer was so punitive, said, well, I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to have to figure it out. Maybe your husband can pay. He's been supportive of you. They're not supposed to do that, but they do. And this is the crap they play. And of course, he wasn't going to pay it. And I had to actually go back and take on the financial litigation unit, which is their United States attorneys as well, and go battle it out with them, saying, here again, here's what I make. Here's what I got. So I was able to get it down to $600 a month, which is still pretty steep for, somebody that doesn't clear that much.
Yeah, that's a car payment.
And plus, you're trying to live.
Yeah.
But those are big obstacles there. And not only that, but just because I'm a white collar case, it didn't matter. Still had urinary analysis. I still had to go in and provide those, even though it was a drug case. So a lot of people get confused. Hey, white collar, why are you still doing that? Or why are you doing that? There's got to be change in that area too.
Yeah.
Because they got autonomy. So.
Yeah, there's there's so many things right now that, I mean, if you look across the board at what's happening, I mean, they just shut down the CHOP today. They're clearing out those folks. And I mean, I think that was, if they could have done that a little bit differently, I think it could have got a lot more traction. But I mean, these people don't want to lose power. That's the thing. They don't want to lose power. We are the cogs in the wheel that make the machine go. And the 5%, because everyone says, oh, the 1%, the 2%. Nope. It's a smaller sliver of people that really control everything, like the Bilderbergs, the Rothschilds, the old money names that,
right.
Trilateral Commission, the UN, the World Health Organization, all of these things, if you really look at who's on the boards of those,
you'll see who's really running the show, what words they're using, and how they use it for, we as sheeple human beings, just, and how they're manipulating everything.
They have the ability to crash economies. They have the ability to crash monetary systems. All they got to do is just shift some money from here to there. And then it's like an octopus, right? You got 8 legs of it. So, these people over in this sector, they're like, all right, well, this is what we're going to do. So here go the people that run the media, because how do you herd the sheeple? You use the media.
You sure do. Just like the BOP uses their communication person. I want that job, because you know what they do? They just write a paragraph and send it out, and everybody eats it.
Yeah.
But it's true. We've got lots of problems, lots of things to fix. And
I think the good thing about it is that people are starting to wake up. The Wizard of Oz is the curtain is getting pulled back. And people are starting to see, hey, I don't like this. I thought I was free, but I don't think I am. We're free-ish, but once you get out of line, just like the BOP, once you cross that line and start, you got a shot because you exposed something. Oh, well, we're going to coerce you to shut your mouth. You want to do that again? Well, next time it'll be 4 months.
Well, my actual thing was, just wait till the book comes out.
Well, at least we got soldiers like myself and you and
Yes.
And Daniel Barron,
Yes.
who's decentralized everything, and I hope that direct democracy and decentralizing everything, voting for solutions instead of, let's get rid of those people. Because
we talked about it. Just get rid of the congressperson. Why do I have to go to them to enact a law? Why can't I get a group of people in Texas and we vote on it and it passes? Don't need that. Just you cut that all out.
It's going to be very hard for corporations to entice an app, or pay off an app, or a backdoor deal, which I really think that these judges are getting paid on the back end. You know what I mean? And it's been exposed before. Remember the juveniles that they were shipping off and giving them ungodly amount of times, and the judge got busted. You think that's an isolated case?
No.
Hell no. The other ones just didn't get caught yet.
Yeah. Remember, they have performance incentives as well. Everybody has a metric that they have to go against. So, I mean, these judges are looked at year by year, and they do get performance bonuses. And those are based on, again, how many sentences, what percentage, what was in their courtroom. So, they do get paid additional from their salary. Off of, what's sending somebody to prison. Oh, it's just, my grandmother's always, everybody, it's the almighty dollar.
Yeah, follow the money, man. And if you and that money trail will lead you to one corporation, which is under an umbrella for 5 other corporations, which is under another umbrella for 17 other corporations. So it's just a labyrinth of a maze that you have to go through.
In prison.
Huh?
Yeah. Why aren't they in prison?
No, they should be. And the crazy thing is that, okay, well, you want to RICO some of these people and do a 17 count indictment. And just because you were the leader. So, I mean, what happened in 2008? Why did only one person go to prison? One banker went to prison.
I can guarantee you this right now. 2008, we saw the housing bubble. I saw a lot of low-level, people were doing escrow and closing, and they went to prison. One count of wire fraud. Should never have been in prison and had 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And then now, with people taking the small business loans based on the COVID, these SBA loans, we're going to see these prosecutors going, let's take a look at some of the fraud in here. So we see this big wave of things like that with the housing market. And then all of a sudden we had an influx of a lot of people that were in real estate or mortgage transactions go to prison.
Yeah. But you didn't see the owners of the banks. What is it? What was the big one? The big bank?
Wells Fargo.
Well, they did the other thing. That was pretty criminal what they did. And they charged all those people and had, all kinds of stuff going on there. But it was, what was a big bank? It was a Goldman Sachs.
Oh, yes. Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs was the big perpetrator there. And the heads of Goldman Sachs, do you know where they're at now? I think they're in one of these things that I mentioned, either the Trilateral Commission, they're on the board there, vice presidents of other, nonprofits that are.
They're moved on up.
Yeah, well, they got rewarded, is what they did.
Well, yeah, they have been. Well, look at the person who's running the Compassionate Release First Step Act in the BOP. He was the warden that was over where what's his name got killed, Epstein.
Okay.
Jeffrey Epstein's warden was moved over to the BOP to run the First Step Act.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding. That's 100%. He is the person tapped to help manage the First Step Act. You think he would have gotten a demotion from what happened in his facility in MDC? What was it, Manhattan? And
No, he didn't. He didn't. You want to know why? Because he saved the ass of all of the politicians that went to that damn island.
Yes, he did, and that's his reward. So people don't know that, but that's why it was so puzzling to me going, isn't that a demotion? Really?
Yeah.
Never had him running the First Step Act for us.
Oh, but that's a conspiracy. That's a conspiracy theory. Well, you know what? A lot of conspiracies have a lot of truth to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, well, hey, you know what? We're at about 55 minutes. And, you know, I think we got about, as much as we can cover on this without, you know, complaining too much more about what the problems are. I mean, you know, there's only slight solutions to some of these problems, but most, you know, and there are a lot of problems, but if we just keep doing what we're doing and putting one foot in front of the other and keep reaching out, keep connecting to people, keep bringing people into the conversation, throwing stuff out there like Facebook Live. We've had tons of people, well, not tons, but more than I thought we're going to join along today. You know, and we just keep doing this.
So important what you're doing.
Yeah.
Very much. You're 100% right. Very important.
And then also too, I mean, if you wouldn't mind, you know, I'll give you, Melissa's information and, you know,
I'm going to take a look at that.
Yeah. Anything that you can, you know, advice, you know, direction that you can have me, you know, get her and, you know, if I can give you her contact information as well, you know, we'll figure something out. But, you know, I just finished her recordings last night. I think we did four separate calls, throughout yesterday. It's only 10 minutes a piece. And so we're able to get something out of there. But I put a link in the comments here, to her episode that she did on the Talk from the Cell Block. And then hopefully, you know, you can check that out, listen to her story from him. And, we'll see what we can do. And I definitely want to stay in contact with you because what I really would like to do at some point is get a group discussion together, like maybe once a month with leaders in the prison reform and, you know, some nonprofit people, other people that are doing things that revolve around, you know, inmates and reentry and all of that stuff. Just to same thing, like
there are so many that are ready to get out there and help be on a panel. I was just again on a couple Zoom meetings last night. So there are people who, again, somebody might benefit from their information.
Yeah. So. And if you have, you know, ones that you think that I would fit, let me know, man. I'd be happy to hop in and listen and, you know, try to learn. And if I can offer any of my own, you know, solutions or insight, I'd be more than happy to, man. Cause this is something that's like close to my heart, man. Cause I've been through it. I know what it's like. And, I was lucky. I had a support system when I got out, so I was able to navigate my way through. And dude, I got out in 2006 and I wasn't done until 2010. And, you know, there is just so many different things out there right now available to people to better yourselves, from podcasts to programs to all kinds of stuff. So it just, you know, the more that we can centralize information and make it accessible to people that are coming out, so they have something to go to
be able to say, okay, this person or this organization.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for taking the time today and talking with me and, you know, telling me your story and, you know, getting this stuff out there, man. It's very important. You know, and one other aspect that I didn't bring up, but I think is important that people need to understand is that prison guards are doing time too. All right. The only difference is they get to go home. But if you know of somebody that's a prison guard, they have to deal with traumatic stuff too. Right. And so that's why you see a lot of them that are alcoholics or drug addicts. They abuse their wives or they're abusive. Where does what you see? Cause that's trauma too, man. When you're housing misery, do you think it's not gonna get on you?
Oh yeah. I mean, my food service manager, he was a drunk, came in every day, horrible marriage, bad kids, problems. Yeah. And then came in to go down on the women. So they're doing time too.
Yeah. And then they need their own kind of, I mean, not that I want to cater to them, but I mean, it's part of the problem. if they were getting some of the kind of help that they needed, maybe counseling through the BOP, because you're exposing us to this, maybe they would treat people a little bit better.
You would think.
You would hope.
You would think. Yeah.
But it takes a certain type of person to want to be a gatekeeper to misery. So I don't know. Maybe it won't help.
Yeah. Still not liking them.
No.
No.
All right. Well, Holli, thank you again. I appreciate it, and we will stay in contact, and I'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the show, and thanks, Holli. I really appreciate that conversation and, all that you're doing in the prison reform space. As always, you can find Holli's information and my own in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to go to the Facebook group, which is called Mindset and Overcoming Life Challenges. All you got to do is type in mindset in the search bar in Facebook, and mine would be the first one that'll pop up in groups. And that's pretty much all I have. Hope everybody is staying safe out there. And until next time, keep it 100. Stay true to yourself. Everything else is just noise.